It's been over a calendar decade since the original NieR dropped, and the remake of Replicant is finally here. I finally live in a world where this jank 7th gen Japanese game I like is getting big sales. It still gives me a little itch on the inside of my brain whenever people call it the NieR Automata prequel though. Anyways, pre-release there was a huge buzz over new content being in the game. I mean, there was never any doubt that there would be, but the scope of it was always in question. Then we found out about a new character named Louise through dark magic being performed on the Steam database changelogs. The final question on everyone's minds was what kind of role would this new character play in the game? Well, after smashing the game for what I'd call a moderately unhealthy amount of time, I can say I've got a pretty good answer for that. So, whether you've played the game and just want to go over the fine details, you've played the original and just want to know about the new content, or whatever's in between, let's have a chat about NieR Replicant's episode Mermaid. By the way, it should go without saying, but spoilers start here and they don't stop. So what are we looking at here? In part 1 of the game, you help out a couple who is having a fight over apples or something, I don't know. I guess when you live in an agrarian society, things like that mean a lot. The defining feature of the couple is that they both wear red bags. Husband thinks she's missing, big misunderstanding, she comes back, done deal. The husband goes on to be the one who runs the ferry service the squad can use to fast travel later in the game. Fast forward to part 2, when Boy NieR becomes, Big Boy NieR. Episode Mermaid is nestled in after the Airy chapter and before the Loyal Cerberus one. Popola lets you know that the Bagman has gone AWOL, and you go to the oft-forgotten area of the original game, Seafront, to search for clues. There's also some giant boat just, chilling on the shoreline, but, I mean, let that sit on the back burner for a sec. After going back and forth between the areas a few times, you finally get a lead to check out the post office in Seafront. When you get there, you find out the postman has bounced out of the office, and some random guy just saw it was empty and decided to fill in for him for a bit. Not so sure if that's how jobs work, but, I mean, I admire the hustle. Your next lead is to go check out the big elephant in the room that washed up on the beach. On the way there, you run into Kaine and Emile, who usually just wait outside Seafront whenever you go in, but here they are now. Good timing. Wonder why they were there, hint hint foreshadowing. You crack open a hole in the Flying Dutchman and you make your way inside, but Kaine and Emile get cold feet and bail out. Bit sudden, don't you think? This is possibly for the same reason Kaine goes missing in the mansion area of the game, because it's time for a bunch of slow-paced, atmospheric walking sequences. I mean, seriously, it's good, but you start to really dread this stuff on playthrough 4, let me tell ya. First, NieR, and by the way, I know his name isn't actually NieR. Yoko Taro never officially referred to him as such, but it's basically his accepted name by this point, and I'm not gonna do this whole playing the pronoun game thing. So NieR it is. Picks up a lantern, and you start to explore the crashed ship on a 2D plane. There isn't really much to speak of gameplay-wise in this segment. It's just exploration with some basic puzzle solving, so let's shelve that for now. You start by chasing after a mysterious figure lurking about the ship while following a trail of apples, evidence that your red bag friend is somewhere about. NieR grabs a document explaining that this was a slaver ship before it crashed ashore, and he also finds some iron tools that were used for torture. Damn, I mean, replicants might not be human, but they sure do mimic every aspect of humanity, even the worst ones. You find a bunch of other documents belonging to the crew, such as notes on how they prefer to eat their meals, and one member's diary about a monster attack. Gosh, I wonder if that'll be relevant later. NieR also finds a document with some illegible writing on it that even Weiss can't make out. Hey, pro tip, might want to store this one in the old human RAM box, cause it's gonna come up later. Lastly, you enter a room with some speaking pipes, and hear some weird noises coming out of them. Pretty wild, 5 out of 10 spooky, but we'll see how this goes. Heading inwards towards the captain's room, the floor suddenly gives out and NieR falls below deck, lantern getting knocked out in the process. You fumble around in the dark for a bit until you find the lantern, flick it back on, and, well, shit.
この死体は町の者たちと喧嘩夫婦の。
そんな嘘だ。どうしてあの人が町のみんながくそ。
Guess we, found the red bag guy. NieR is pretty visibly shook by the whole thing, and Weiss tells him to avert his eyes and keep moving. Exiting the dank basement that nothing good ever came from, NieR reunites with Kaine and Emile, who were just sitting around here waiting, I guess? Thanks for, giving us the opportunity to experience an atmospheric set piece, you guys. The gang makes their way over to the captain's room and opens the door where they find a lone girl wearing a bow. I don't know, that's pretty sus if you ask me, fellas. Tensions are coming to a head when the postman walks in like a sitcom character sans a laugh track. When he approaches the girl, Kaine loses her cool and shouts out that she's a shade, prompting her to attack, cracking open the floor and dropping the postman down below. The girl pops out some tentacles and chases after him, while NieR, Skeletor Jr., and the new model Kaine head to the top deck of the ship. It's here we get to see the full extent of her shady transformation.
バカな。
God damn. That's some Resident Evil body horror type shit right there. This leads to a cool boss fight. I shouldn't have to say this, since the whole chapter is exclusive to the remake, but this is an all-new boss fight with multiple forms. Probably one of the most complex in the game. Turns out the boss is a bit of a hit squad killer, and after getting stomped out, Kaine pulls out a bit of hostage diplomacy by putting her sword to the postman to try and call off the Shade's attack. Louise has a little heated gamer moment, knocking the party to the ground and preparing the finishing blow. Just as all hope seems lost, NieR Replicant version 1.22, the numbers on the back of your Burger King gift card's secret party member reveals themselves and comes in for an assist. The postman takes a piece of wood and starts smacking the giant Shade with it, causing her to lower her guard. This creates a distraction just long enough for NieR to cinematically charge up and fire a blast of dark lance, which hits the Shade right in the head. The Shade stares out at the sea before disappearing, and the scene comes to a close. The final part of the chapter has NieR giving the news to the red bag guy's wife about what happened, and she has a breakdown in front of him. In typical NieR fashion, this scene is about 100 milligrams of the big sad beamed directly into your brain. And with that, episode Mermaid comes to a close. Except did I mention we got playthrough B? Okay, so going through this chapter for a second time, you'll immediately notice some big changes. The whole theme of playthrough B is seeing things through the Shade's perspectives, but let's shelve that for a sec. We get a few new scenes with the postman, who names the girl Louise. That's not necessarily the first thing that happens chronologically, but I'm getting real tired of calling her the girl and her and that. So the postman finds Louise alone on the ship and takes a liking to her. He mistakes her for a passenger who survived the wreck and is too traumatized to leave the ship. Amateur mistake, but I'll give him the pass. He visits her regularly to check up on her, bring her food, make sure she's okay, and the like. In one scene, he shows up and she's got some new fashion, and he says something along the lines of, "Hey Louise, that's a cool red bag, where'd you get it?" Answer the question, Louise. Where'd you get the bag, Louise? Who gave you the bag? The postman also asks Louise to move in with her, and to be his daughter, but she declines, cause of the whole, giant sea monster thing. He also teaches her two skills in particular, writing and speaking. Let's go over these one by one, of which there are two. Remember the illegible document NieR found? Well, we can safely assume that was Louise trying to write a letter to the postman. Remember, she can't speak, so the only way she could communicate is with writing, if she knew how. She'd been using the other documents around the ship, copying the letters, trying to write something down. The next skill he taught her was how to sing. He did it in front of her, and she mimicked him, with,
Whoa, your voice is a bit rough there.
Mixed results, to say the least. Remember the mysterious noises NieR heard through the ship's speaking pipes? That was Louise attempts to sing. Her singing also takes the form of some of her attacks during the boss fight. Just gonna say, I don't think I'd be taking her to karaoke anytime soon. But what does Louise think about all this? Remember, we can understand the Shades now that we're on playthrough B. Well, Louise is obsessed with the idea of becoming human. She doesn't really get why she's a Shade, and she doesn't know why she isn't human, and she's pretty determined to do whatever it takes to be as human as possible so she can stay with the postman, despite keeping him at arm's length so he doesn't catch on to what she really is. She's constantly using an insane amount of power to maintain the human form she's disguising herself as, something she's having some clear trouble doing as she lets herself slip a few times. There's a scene where she's having a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde moment and losing her ability to keep it together. She has her little, thing freaking out over here. She desperately wants to be human, and thinks that if she continues to eat humans, she can keep her form so she won't scare away the postman, the only person in the world who's ever cared about her. Okay, in case you're not seeing the irony, let me smack you over the back of the head with it. Louise is obsessed with becoming human, but let me remind you, being a shade, she's the only human in the room! NieR isn't human. The postman isn't human. Emil is human, but you know what I mean. Despite being factually the only human on board this boat, she desperately tries to maintain what she perceives as her humanity, killing and devouring the people of Seafront to keep up her form. She wants to be part of the human world so bad, as is indicated as she looks tearfully into the distance as she disappears. Wish I could be part of your world. Yoko, you been watching them Disney cartoons again? You know that mouse is bad for you. Anyways. Remember how Emil and Kaine are conveniently waiting for you outside the ship right as you're going to investigate it? Turns out this is because Tyran been talking shit about how he senses some Giga Chad shade presence on the wreck, so Kaine drags out the boy to investigate it. He also narcs on Louise, which is why Kaine shouts out that she's a shade.
Oh man, this shade is nuts! I think I'm in love.
Overall, there's just a lot of extra scenes on Playthrough B that give context to the characters, giving us a bigger picture of the story. So, I'm gonna do another bait and switch where I pretend the video's over, but it's not over, trust me, get ready. Except did I mention we got Playthrough C! Woo, so this is new for NieR Replicant, since most of the content doesn't really change between Playthroughs B and C. While most is the same, Episode Mermaid gets a few significant changes. The first being an extra scene that lets us know Devila and Popola are in on the whole thing. Wait, what?
ただ、なぜか最近になって人間になることに執着し始めてね。懸念があるのなら払拭しておかないと。もし魔王が計画に背くようなら、あの子の力で制さなければいけないのだから。
Louise was a plan B in case the whole Shadow Lord thing failed. Like, damn, there's gotta be an easier way to order a hit on a fella. The next big change, and I mean the big change, happens during the boss fight with Louise herself. On playthroughs A and B, there's a section where you have to deal a certain amount of damage to Louise before a timer runs out, but it's impossible to do so. Like, seriously, on Route B I managed to deal enough damage, but the game just stopped on the last tick, saying come back next time. Well, on playthrough C, you can break through this barrier, which completely changes the boss fight, foregoing the need for Kaine to take a hostage. You enter a new phase where you climb up the boss to take the fight to Louise's head, body, thing, itself. After this, the story proceeds pretty normally until everything's said and done, until we learn that one of Louise's letters survived the battle. Tyran lays some smack about Louise's Romaji stroke order while Kaine mulls over what to do with it. So before we continue, just a quick little reminder, Louise couldn't speak, at least not in the human language. As is proven during the boss fight with her, where one of her screams is that if she can eat enough people and become human, she can live in the same world and speak the same language as the postman. She could speak in her shade noises, but never directly to the postman, lest she scare him off. Therefore, to everyone other than Kaine, who can understand the shades, this is the only thing Louise, and possibly the only thing any shade has ever managed to communicate to a replicant. Kaine gives Louise's document to the postman, a barely legible letter with only 2 words on it. And those 2 words? Thank you. Oof, the postman is obviously emotionally conflicted about this. I mean, think about it, he clearly harbors guilt for taking care of the thing that's been killing and eating the people of Seafront. But we can't assume he's been with Louise for quite a while, and had legitimately developed a close relationship with her. And I mean, damn, he knows how hard she worked, literally copying out letters until something stuck, and the most important thing she so desperately wanted to communicate was thanks for the way he treated her. God damn, man, it just really do be like that sometimes. For those of you with NieR Big Brain, you might notice that this episode is pretty similar to the short story titled The Little Mermaid from Grimoire NieR. And hey, you'd be right. The story is pretty similar, but there are a few key differences. The first being is Kaine and Emil don't bail out of the ship in the beginning, because there's no atmospheric walking sequence for NieR to go on. Because, you know, it's a book. In the story, they all enter together, and they make their way to the captain's room pretty directly. Red Bagman also doesn't make an appearance in the short story. He's a brand new addition for the game. Being, you know, the written word, which works a lot better for the exposition department, the short story also gives us some background insight into some characters' thoughts. Nothing absolutely significant, but there is a certain internal monologue that Kaine has which is kinda interesting. Basically, the reason Louise and some other super powerful shades have extraneous features is because their magic power is so dummy thick that it's got no practical use to manifest as, so it just becomes like a pair of wings or something. Also, in the scene where Louise gives the postman bread... No, wait, hang on a minute. In the scene where the postman gives Louise some bread, while she's eating it, she's like going so ham, she just bites his finger and starts making him bleed, and she just deadass stares him in the eyes like, yeah? And? The last difference to note is what Kaine does with Louise's letter after everything is said and done. In the short story, Kaine rips it up without giving it to the postman, which is actually what happens during playthrough B of NieR Replicant. Handing over the letter is something that's left out of the short story, being brand new to the game. So knowing that, I'm gonna ask you, which version of the events do you think is better? So that was NieR Replicant's brand new story chapter, episode Mermaid. Thanks for watching up until this point. I recently posted a poll to YouTube asking what people would like to see next, and it seems a lot of people would like a video on the new ending. Okay, I can do that. It'll probably take a while to get out, since, you know, being the most significant piece of new content in the remake, I want to get it done well. I'll probably get out another translated chapter of NieR Reincarnation before I'm finished with the Ending E video, just because, you know, something like that's a lot shorter and thus takes a bit less time to make. Before both of those, though, I have a non-NieR video that should be out kinda soonish. What soon means is up to you. Anyways, till next time.